And another one done. So this month we read The Betrothed by Alessandro Manzoni, and it was long. I have mixed feelings about it. I like it, but I don't love it. And I will explain later a little bit more why. So the story is about a couple named Lucia and Renzo, and they want to get married. But there is a man, Don Rodrigo, who does not want them to get married because he wants to have Lucia for himself. There's this whole culture of bravos, what they call bravos, and they're these men. They're kind of like gangsters, like a mob of men at the time, and you didn't want to mess with them. Don Rodrigo sent these bravos to the priest, the parish priest, who was going to marry Lucia and Renzo, and threatened him. And he's a very cowardly man, the priest. The first time I was reading it, I imagined, the actor from Amadeus, the one who played Salieri. It was kind of like that. He's just the kind of person who's like, why me? And I immediately pictured him as Don Abbondio. And so the bravos visited him, and he was threatened, and he was too cowardly to get them married or to do the rites for marriage. And so Lucia and Renzo find themselves in this dilemma. They really want to get married, but then there's this man who's threatening them through violence. And so they try to plan their escape in a way. They infiltrate Father Abbondio's house because they put together this plan where they can just get married because he's a witness and he's a priest, and if they both want to get married and they say yes, well, then it's approval of the priest. Like, he can't really do anything. The plan does not work, and so they have to flee because Don Rodrigo was also plotting a way to kidnap Lucia so that he can have her for himself. Lucia is great friends with this man called Father Cristoforo, and he tries to help them as well get away. And so at one point they are separated. Lucia is in a nunnery, and Lorenzo has to go to Milan to try to find this other priest or monk, and that's where everything starts to go a little crazy. There's also a character called the Unnamed, who eventually kind of falls for Lucia. Lucia's a little bit of a Marion-like character. I mean, she has her flaws, but she's better than Lorenzo. And this character has a conversion to the faith, whereas Don Rodrigo he stays hard. There are a lot of great characters. It's a little bit of like Agnese. I really liked Agnese. She's kind of a bit of like a sitcom character. Even Perpetua, Father Abbondio's help. And there's so many characters. Hello, and welcome to September. It's already September. If you'd like to join me, this month we are reading Diary of a Country Priest by Georges Bernanos. There is a Telegram group that you can sign up to where we share our favorite passages and motivate each other to read. And at the end of the month, we get together and talk about the book to help you, also motivate you to read these wonderful works of literature. And let's wait for the truck to pass. So if that interests you, there's a link in the description below with all the details and the Telegram group and all the rest of the books that we're reading this year. Yeah, I'd love to have you there. For the meantime, let's get back to the book review. The style. Okay, when I was reading, I thought that this book is kind of like, in terms of style, it's very much like Kristen Lavransdatter meets brain fart, Brothers Karamazov, like Dostoevsky, the way he writes and the way Sigrid Undset write. It's a mix, but it's not as slow as Dostoevsky. The ball gets rolling, after a few pages, whereas Dostoevsky takes his time, like half of the book he's just giving you some exposition. And it's kind of like Sigrid Undset's writing in the sense that it's very detailed in terms of historical details in their clothing, in their mannerisms. And it's also very much like Dostoevsky when Dostoevsky goes like, hey, reader, I could tell you about this man a little bit more, but I won't do that. It would take another 600 pages. That's what I mean. So it's a mix of both. It's very detailed, and this might sound negative, but Alessandro Manzoni doesn't give you room to interpret. He's very meticulous in the way he describes someone, and the way they speak, the way they address other people, the way they act is very precise. I was hoping it would be kind of like a roller coaster kind of book in the way that Kristin Lavransdatter daughter is to me. It's very much you're reading and it's like, and then something bad really happens and again. But this is different. This is a kind of roller coaster, you know, those kind of snake roller coasters where you go up and you are waiting for a descent, but actually it gives you a little detour. And what I mean by that is that there's so much historical detail. I know more about the bread famine in Italy than I ever have in my life. There are so many tangents, historical tangents, character tangents. There are many characters. There's the I call it the princess nun, who's also based on a person, and he, like earlier on when I said he doesn't give you room to interpret, what I mean as well as that, for example, in the situation with the nun, Gertrude is her name. She's very stern, very cold in her interaction with the mother, Agnese and Lucia, and and you think like, okay, it's one of those nuns, right? Like it's just the way it is. She's strict. But then he gives you the backstory and why she's like that. Oh, because her family basically forced her into this life of becoming a nun, and etc., etc. So each character has so much nuance to them, and you understand exactly why that person acts that way. So the psychology, there's a lot of psychology in this work, why people are the way they are, and you get a wonderful broad spectrum of different kinds of people in the faith. So you have Father Abbondio, who's this great coward, the worst of the worst, who tries to save himself, but he's a priest. And then you also have Father Cristoforo, who's a monk, but he's like a saint. And so it shows you that the church is filled with these people. That you have these cowards, but you also have these saints, and we're all in it together. And that's the way it is. It's really messy. In terms of the tangents, sometimes it did feel a little too long, but very interesting. If you were to tell me this tangent about the bread famine, if someone told me to take it as like a historical piece of work, in the sense of like, oh, this is a piece of history you should know about, then it's super interesting. For me, who struggles with remembering history, because it is in a narrative form, it was easy for me to remember things and to really dive deep into that and to be invested. Even though it took a little while, it does take a while. You're like, okay, why do I care about the bread famine? And that's another thing too, I thought in my mind, which is the same thing that happened to me when I read Brothers Karamazov, the third part where Renzo's finally trying to find Lucia. I was thinking like, okay, it's been years, right? No, it had only been 20 months. It talked a lot about the plague and the ramifications of the plague, how people interacted with one another, what happened to all these people, their way of thinking, how people kind of went crazy. Reading it, I was just reminded of 2020. And I wish I had read this in 2020, because you see nothing's changed. People were exactly the same. You know, people would get paranoid. Like if you coughed, someone would tell like the police about you. It was like reading what happened in 2020, and so I found that so interesting. And you are really invested, at least for me in that part about the plague. You were really invested in what was going on. I remember this particular part where he spoke about a mother. There were people coming by, picking up dead bodies, and there was this mother who was holding her child, and basically said a last goodbye and told the man to, come back tonight because I have another one upstairs, and you might as well come back for me. And this longing to die with her children, because they were going one at a time, it really hit hard. And so I really like that about Manzoni. When it comes to the tangents, so this time, for the first time, I actually relied on audio books. I listened to the narration by Nicholas Boulton because it's the closest to this, and I didn't want to have two different kind of translations that were very different from each other. I do have someone in the group, Rachel, who suggested Michael Moore translation. It's a newer translation by an American, and apparently the audiobook is also good for that. Anyway, in terms of audiobooks, I relied on it heavily just because I was traveling, and also for those moments of the tangents, the historical tangents, it really helped push me. And that at one point, because the narrator was actually really good, helped a lot. And speaking to this person in the group, Rachel, she speaks Italian, and she said there's actually a lot of nuance that is lost. There's a lot of wordplay. There's more room for interpretation than in the English version, and also this version, the Penman, the Bruce Penman version, seems a little stiff. So that also might have played on the fact that I didn't enjoy it as much. But apparently the Michael Moore version is very good. So I think I will, the next time I read it, I'm going to try the Michael Moore translation, and then perhaps hopefully work on my Italian. I don't speak Italian. It's really just much like Dostoevsky, much like Sigrid Undset, the Catholicism is in there. You can't remove it. From what I remember, Alessandro Manzoni is a revert. What's fascinating as well are the many times that he quotes the Bible. Like you're reading and you're like, I think that's from the Bible. And then some of it I'm sure that's in the Bible. But yeah, he quotes the Bible heavily, and it's intertwined, much like in many books pre-20th century. I would say another thing that people might not like as much are the author, like little quips and little comments that he says, like, hey you, or dear reader, like, that's not everybody's cup of tea. But yeah, just a note. I'm gonna give it another try a few years from now. Tell me your experience. Have you read the book? Are you Italian? Have you read this? Because I heard that this is required reading for Italian students in high school, which I think it's maybe Italian students at the time, like up until the 20th century, maybe would have been good. But it's such a different way of living and a different mindset. So I can understand why it's difficult for most students to read, but it is a good book. Let me know in the comments below what you thought about the book, if you're interested in reading it. Did you like the tangents? And I shall see you in the next one.